Assalamu alaikum everyone to Iftar Hour Day 20. I would like to pass you over to your host, Asim the Mahmoud Muda. Over to you, Asim.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, I thought you were going to do. I think you were going to start with the nasheed, but obviously not.
Well, you know, if we get the 100 donors, then
Not donors.
Maulana Asim,
Will
it
be
doesn't matter
singing.
how much it is, even if it's £1 every day for the next 10 days. If we get 100 people, we're on, I think, 62 now. So if we get 100 people donating £1 a day for the next 10 days, then forget me singing Maulana Asim of Whitelands Road. Yeah, he will be singing. Yeah, he'll be singing a qasaid. And he does Zain Bika, he does Taha Zain, whoever that is, and he does all the Zains of this world. So let's hit that target of 100 people, inshallah. Over to you, Brother Asim, and inshallah you can introduce our special guest today as well.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Bi rahmatihi arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone. How many other people have joined? Today we will be having Ustad Nisa, who's online. So Ustad, if you can make yourself present. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. I'm good. Sidi, how are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Alhamdulillah, all well. So I think Ustad, what we normally do in terms of this Iftar hour, we normally start off with the recitation of Quran. So Sidi Hisham is there and he will recite Quran. And then we have sort of a bit of a qasaid. And then what I'll do is I'll formally introduce you. Hopefully we'll have a few more people joining by then, and I'll formally introduce him. And again, we'd love to hear sort of your thoughts, especially around obviously your chosen art and your chosen discipline. And then maybe, and again, I think Owais will also be on. Obviously you can see Asim as well. And then we'll have a bit of a conversation. We're not going to make it too technical, so inshallah people online can still understand. And I think Asim said he was going to wear his his gi, but obviously he decided against it.
You know what? I've actually it's been a hair.
It's got some dust on it. It's got some dust on it.
Adding to the pain. Adding to the pain.
Don't put him anymore. That's why.
Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Isham.
Inshallah, today we'll be reading Surah 10 to Surah Bayyinah, so we're carrying on with just 30. So we're nearing the end now, and inshallah in a couple of days we'll do a khatam. When I've finished, I'm up to date with my Quran as well, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى إن إلى ربك الرجعى أرأيت الذي ينهى عبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى أو أمر بالتقوى أرأيت إن كذب وتولى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى كلا لئن لم ينته لنسفعا بالناصية ناسية كاذبة خاطئة فليدع ناديه سندع الزبانية كلا لا تطعه واسجد واقترب. Also, that's the sajda, so make sure you do your sajda later on today, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لم يكن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين منفكين حتى تأتيهم البينة رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة فيها كتب قيمة وما تفرق الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا من بعد ما جاءتهم البينة وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين حنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة وذلك دين القيمة إن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين في نار جهنم خالدين فيها أولئك هم شر البرية إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أولئك هم خير البرية جزاؤهم عند ربهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه ذلك لمن خشي ربه صدق الله العظيم. Can I request one thing? My granddad at the moment, from my mum's side, he's in hospital with the operation. So just remember him in your du'as, please. And we'll just do a Fatiha for him now.
آمين.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, Asim, if you're there.
Yep, Bismillah.
Bismillah.
As we start here, is there any requests to start in terms of any qasaid or?
Oh, that's a question now. Oh.
A Jiu-Jitsu one.
No, I'd like to hear your I don't know, Qamarun, be nice.
Bismillah. سيدنا النبي قمرون وجميل سيدنا النبي وجميل قمر سيدنا النبي قمرون وجميل 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 سيدنا النبي وجميل الله الله وكف المصطفى كالورد نادي الله الله رأيت روح يبقى إذا مست أيادي الله الله وكف المصطفى كالورد نادي الله الله رأيت روح يبقى إذا مست أيادي الله الله وعمنا ونوحا كل العباد
حبيب الله يا خير البراء يا قمرون قمر سيدنا النبي قمرون وجميل وجميل سيدنا النبي وجميل ولا ظل له بل كان نورا الله الله تنال شمس منه والبذور الله الله ولا ظل له بل كان نورا الله الله تنال شمس منه والبذور الله الله ولم يكن الهدى لولا ظهورا ولم يكن الهدى لولا ظهورا ولم يكن الهدى لولا ظهورا وكل الكون أنار بنور طه قمر سيدنا النبي قمرون وجميل وجميل سيدنا النبي وجميل طالما أشكو غرامي يا نور الوجود طالما أشكو غرامي يا نور الوجود يا حبيبي وأنادي يا تهامي يا معدن الجود وأنادي يا تهامي يا معدن الجود بنيتي أقصى مرامي أحظى بالشهود بنيتي أقصى مرامي أحظى بالشهود وأرى باب السلام يا زاكي الجود وأرى باب السلام يا زاكي الجود طالما أشكو غرامي يا نور الوجود طالما أشكو غرامي يا نور الوجود يا حبيبي وأنادي يا تهامي يا معدن الجود وأنادي يا تهامي يا معدن الجود ادخلوا المدينة وصلوا عليه ادخلوا المدينة وصلوا عليه ادخلوا المدينة وصلوا عليه قولوا يا نبينا يا محمد عليك السلام قولوا يا نبينا يا محمد عليك السلام طالما أشكو غرامي يا نور الوجود طالما أشكو غرامي يا نور الوجود يا حبيبي وأنادي يا تهامي يا معدن الجود وأنادي يا تهامي يا معدن الجود اللهم صل وسلم وبارك
عليه وعلى آله.
ما شاء الله سليم. What a talent. What a talent. MashaAllah. Barakallah fikum.
So, Bismillah. I just want to introduce our guest today, Ustad Nisa Sheikh. So, mashallah, Ustad's been teaching in High Wycombe. He's been blessing the community of High Wycombe for close to 5 years, maybe a bit more. And so primarily he is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So again, obviously, you know, Ustad will, I'm sure, talk a little bit more about that. But to be honest, for me, and I'm sure for, you know, dozens and if not scores of people, some of the brothers in High Wycombe, Ustad's much more than a jiu-jitsu instructor. He is, he's certainly, you know, someone that we really, really enjoy his company. And also he's our teacher, not just in just jiu-jitsu, he's our Islamic studies teacher. Teaches us so much, and there's a huge amount that's being taught through the jiu-jitsu in terms of you know, in terms of the spiritual sciences. So and that's incredibly helpful. And I think in terms of just the knowledge that people have gained, and I think as much as we love and enjoy listening to him talking about the jiu-jitsu, I think for me it's amazing just to listen to him even talking at the end just about life experiences and how all of these things that kind of rolled into one. So without further ado, Ustad's going to talk today, inshallah, and speak a little bit about the spiritual practices of the martial arts, and how they sort of cross over into our Islamic practice as well, and our sort of what they should be in terms of our daily rituals and our daily experience. So, Bismillah.
Barakallah fikum. Thank you for the kind words. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulil Kareem Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. I want to go back. To November 2011. I found myself lying in a hospital bed. I just had an MRI scan on my head, on my face. I ended up there because a week earlier, as I was getting ready for work, my usual, you know, job, get up in the morning. I'd just come off of my last tournament as a purple belt. I was a bit sore from the night before, training session that we had in London, and I was just getting ready for work as you usually do. You had your cornflakes, shoes are shined, got my suit on, getting ready for work. It's a frosty morning. I've got my gloves on, and I'm making my way down to Feltham train station. I walk closer to the station, and here near Hounslow, you can actually see the train approaching the platform from outside the station. So you can actually see the track. I see the train approaching, and I panic. I'm like, I want to miss that train. So I get on that train. I go for a run. I'm just running to that train, and the cold air is just vaporing out of my mouth. As you can imagine, it's November time now. And as I paced, and I'm really pelting it down now, trying to catch that train, my back is laden with my laptop and it's heavy. And just as I crossed the last road to get to the station, I felt a sharp, hot blade searing into my left side of my face. I stopped dead in my tracks. The pain is so painful, so excruciating, that I dropped to one knee and tears are coming out of my eyes because of the pain. I dare not move. I don't want to get up. So much pain that I start dribbling down the left side of my face. I can't close, I can't move my mouth. And this carries on for what felt like an eternity. And it was probably only 30 seconds. Slowly, thankfully, the pain starts to fade away. And I gather myself, I pick myself up, and I force myself to work. I get to work, get into the office, I work about half a day, the pain is intermittent, it's striking up and down, I can't handle it, I go home. I've got medical cover at work, so immediately I get onto the phone and I make an appointment to see a neurologist. He expedites, after hearing my situation, he expedites a scheduled MRI scan within the next couple of days. I have the scan, and that was a horrible experience in itself. I'm very claustrophobic, and I'm forced to take a few days off of work. I then walk into Dr. Marsh's office at Parkside Hospital in Wimbledon. He takes a look at me, and with a long face, he says, "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Sheikh, but you have a rather rare condition. It's called trigeminal neuralgia. Do you know what that is?" I shake my head. I don't know what that is. He goes, "What medication have you been taking?" So I tell him it's a medication that the doctor has given me since I had that incident. He said, "Medication is not that effective. You need to go for what's called the microvascular decompression surgery. It's the only way. What they're going to do is they're going to drill a hole in the side of your head, about the size of a 50p piece. They'll go in through the trigeminal branch of nerves into the front of the face, and they put a Teflon sheet between the blood vessel and the culprit nerve that causes the pain." He goes, "We'll seal it back up with some cement. You might lose your hearing. There's a chance you'll lose your sight, and you won't feel like your normal self for about 3 years. You won't be working, but hopefully you'll pull through." So I look at him, and he looks at me, and he says, "In case you're wondering, I'm telling you not to have the surgery. You're far too young, and I think you should just go home, speak to your wife, and think about your options." So I go home. My mind is in a daze. That year, my wife had given birth to our first child. I was at the peak of fitness. I was a purple belt. I was doing pretty okay at the gym. And now I'm here faced with this difficulty, this musibah, this real big trial in my life. And then 2 ayahs of Quran kind of come in my mind. One is in Surah Al-Ankabut, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يَتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think that they will be left to say, "I believe," and not be tested? And then the second ayah, which we all quite frequently quote, that really gives me great solace. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah that Allah will not burden a soul with more than it can bear. One of the things that I found that my time training or my exposure to the martial arts, particularly Jiu-Jitsu, it gave me a profound way, a blueprint, if you like, of how to deal with adversity. You guys know when we train, the number of people that come through the doors, people who start out, people who leave, and it's not immediately perceptible as to why you would want to do it, why you'd want to grapple, why is it a sunnah? We always talk about it being a sunnah, and it's hard to get across to people. You guys have now been training, my brothers who are on the camera now, you can see they've been training for a number of years, and they're very, very good, very capable people. But it took you some time to get there. You had to overcome a great deal, and I saw that in you, which was beautiful to see, actually, because it showed a great persistence in how you were doing things and how you were dealing with the stresses of this noble art. But for some people, they can't get beyond that. They can't see that. They won't even enter into that. And what I just gave you was just a little glimpse. I don't like to talk about it. Was something that I found within myself that this art gave me. And it was a way of dealing with hardship, with adversity. There's so much we can talk about in terms of what Jiu-Jitsu can do for you, what grappling can do for you. But that is sometimes on the surface. And it's hard for us to perceive what's deeper than that. And that's why I wanted to just kind of highlight, just from the outset, a very small snippet into what happened to me at that point. And it was kind of midpoint into my Jiu-Jitsu kind of, career, if you like. Purple belt is the middle belt. And it was something that really, really stuck out for me. And it was very, very powerful experience, because one of the things that we always go through is hardship. You will be tested in this life. And it's how we deal with that test. Yeah, it's an inevitability of us being on this world, is that tests will come. And this current situation that we all find ourselves in, and this is why we're all speaking on the phone like this or on Zoom, is that many of us aren't able to deal with that, or are really, really struggling with how to deal with that. So I'm not going to speak now about technical terminology and things that, you know, you guys all like to hear about and you all know very well, because I think many people, if you've never done grappling before, you'll think like, well, that just looks really, really odd. It looks really, really strange. I don't think I want to do that. I also want to kind of just let people know, like, you know, perhaps there are some sisters who are out there. My wife is probably, I don't know if she's listening, she might be sleeping, I'm not sure. Many people, you know, really kind of reject it because of how physically intimate it is and how difficult it is. And what I wanted to say is that if there was a way that you could learn very effectively, very immediately of how to deal with hardship, that is a single reason, enough of a reason for you to try and take on this art. I spent the last, you know, maybe 18 years of my life, you know, grappling. You know, I've been doing it on and off. I've had a very high number of injuries. I've had several surgeries, and it's not been easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it has been in other ways. And those other ways are those internal things that I wanted to kind of highlight today. When we first think about the Sunnah, or the prophetic way, or the way that our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam dealt with things, we often look at the end result. We look at what happened after that, what advice was given and what happened after that. We often don't look at, or, you know, rarely do we look at the reasons as to why certain things were advocated. And for me, this is what I've spent the last, you know, almost 10 years of my life now, just, you know, reading and speaking to several scholars and just trying to get some insights into, you know, even from my own life experience and those of my students and my friends, is that why was perhaps grappling, wrestling, and, you know, for us now, Jiu-Jitsu, a prophetic way? Why is it that we can learn so much, not only physically, not only psychologically, but spiritually as well? Physically, I think it's been well established now, and I think, you know, if anyone has any doubts about the efficacy of jiu-jitsu or its effectiveness in real combat, and I'm talking, you know, like perhaps in a street fight scenario, or if you were to take an MMA fight, I think it's been established without doubt how effective grappling jiu-jitsu really is. It's a profoundly effective, realistic martial art that I really, if anyone was to tell me, you know, what art to learn as a basis before striking, grappling, especially jiu-jitsu, I would really advocate that. Psychologically, and this links a little bit towards our understanding of the spiritual dimension of grappling. Psychologically, it prepares us in many, many ways. Jiu-jitsu, the epitome of jiu-jitsu, or the ultimate goal of it, is what we term as the submission. The submission is the culminating point where your opponent must succumb to the force that you implement upon him or her by way of a joint lock or strangulation. Okay? So at that point there, when they reach that point and you put them in a submission, they are forced to give up. It is categorical. It ends there at that point. And this is one of the things that separates jiu-jitsu from perhaps other grappling arts like freestyle wrestling, for example, Greco-Roman wrestling, even modern day judo, although judo, essentially you could say Brazilian jiu-jitsu comes from judo, is a very close cousin of that art form. There's somewhat of a ambiguous nature to the victory. You could take somebody down and it could end the bout, or you could win by 10 points because you've taken them down, or you've moved towards their back like you have in the Olympic freestyle wrestling art. But what you have in jiu-jitsu is a very unique situation where it doesn't matter what's said. When somebody taps out, they can no longer go any further. That finalization of the matter is unequivocal. Unequivocal. It's very, very clear. And what this does is for us is that it kind of amplifies in us an ability or a vocation to submit to a higher authority. Now on the mats, the higher authority is the one who's most gracious, the most able, capable, and you'll find that you'll end up having to tap to someone who's maybe stronger than you are or has more technique than you have. But this ability to submit is not easy, and this is where many people who don't share our faith find spiritual growth in the act of submitting. The act of submitting is essentially what a Muslim is. Yeah. And this is what I think many people kind of miss out on when they think about Jiu-Jitsu. They think about Jiu-Jitsu and they think, it's just bravado, guys got funny cauliflower ears, they sweat all day long and they're just rolling around with each other and it looks really, really odd. But what it does is it heightens our thinking as it relates to submitting to a higher authority. If you struggle to submit when you're forced to in a scenario like Jiu-Jitsu, how will you ever submit voluntarily? And what that means is that I want you to think about this is just understanding that when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a complete submission to him. And this is one thing that many people are averse to, despite what they say, despite being believers, but despite being Muslim and yep, we believe in Allah, we believe in the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes, often, we don't submit. Why? Because we're not used to doing that. We actually, our egos get in the way of that. So the art form, ultimately grappling, is an acknowledgement of what I believe to be our essential primordial nature, which is to submit. And it's a profoundly unique art. It's a very unique way of excavating within you or outwardly the true nature of the self. When you step onto the mats, there is no hiding. There is absolute truth on the mats. You can't fake it. Yeah? And this is something that many people don't see from the outward. They just see a lot of guys rolling and being really, really strong, and maybe I could do this and I could outwit him. But day in, day out to grapple, there is no hiding from that. They often say that Jiu-Jitsu is honest, even if you're not. And I find that really resonates with me, because that is ultimately what I seek to find in doing this art. Yes, I can be beaten. Yes, I can beat other people. But what truth am I trying to uncover within myself? That is what I think is really, really important. Another thing to highlight, I think, is the act of combat. Yeah. Combat is very intrinsically linked to fear, which is very natural. Combat, fear go hand in hand. You can ask anybody who's had a fight, anyone who's you can just think back, kind of just infantile behavior. Go back to school, go back to when you were bullied, go back to whatever, or even now in a more direct approach, people who are preparing for competition. Many of you guys have competed in tournaments. If you're preparing for an MMA bout, ask anyone about combat and how it relates to fear. Combat brings about a rare honesty within us. Yeah, there's an undeniable truth about combat, and it's not about winning. It's not about victory or defeat. It's about yourself. It's about facing yourself. I remember I was at a tournament, and I was a blue belt at the time, And this was after I had knee surgery, and I was very apprehensive about fighting. I was like, I don't want to do these tournaments. And my club was very big advocates of competition. You had to enter them. It doesn't matter, what happened. You had to enter them. So we went in, and this was the first one I'd done after I'd, I tore my ACL, then I had surgery and whatever. And I did really well. I thought I did really well. I had, 4 fights, and I won 3 by submission, got to the finals, and I lost on points. And I came back out, and I got my bag, and I looked around, and then I went back home, and I went to the gym the next day. I went back to my club, and I saw somebody's car that was parked outside. His name's Adam. He's from Poland. He's a good friend of mine. And Adam was my nemesis. And when I saw his car, dread almost went into my heart. I could feel nervous. I did really well at the tournament. I just submitted everybody except for the last guy, and the last guy wasn't all that, great. I didn't think he was. I won marginally by a few points, but yeah, I'd come back at the, peak of what I'd just done. I had a medal around my neck, and I felt a sense of dread that I still had to face this person in the gym the very next day. And what that taught me was that this understanding of combat and fear brings about a truth within yourself, that you will have to face adversity, hardship, no matter what happens. And this is what's really, really important for us to get across, that this is what it teaches us. Yeah, it's very, very honest. And if you can expose yourself to that honesty continually, there's a transformation that takes place within you. That's what I've really found with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, with grappling, generally speaking. I think it's an incentive for many of us, those perhaps on the periphery, those who are just thinking about dipping their toes into grappling, is that not only does it keep us honest, but it keeps us embedded, grounded in reality. We're all very quick. We all do it. I myself, all of us are like armchair critics. The next boxing match that comes up, the next UFC fight comes up, we're all sitting there, discussing it. Oh, who's going to win? And his ground game's not all that, and his wrestling's poor, and his boxing, man, he needs to brush up on his boxing. And we haven't taken the time. Not even a single hour has been spent ourselves on any of those art forms. Yeah, we really have no idea what it means to go into combat. Yeah, but we were very quick to critique others and criticize and poke fingers and whatever. What you'll find, if you're seeking truth, is that reality really sits deep within you the very moment you step onto the mat. And it's something that if you can continually expose yourself to, not only will that, inshallah, engender a greater spiritual awareness of yourself and your nufus and your ego and your mindset, but inshallah, I hope, if you're aware, you can work on eradicating some of those spiritual diseases. Yeah. So there's that kind of exposure of it first, which is what I found personally when I was there. I was, doing all my tournaments and whatever, and it was like I found, and to use, kind of some phraseology, I found so much with Jiu-Jitsu and Tasawwuf. Yeah, those two for me, I just saw parallels every day, all the time, and I think it's really important that we think about that when we're doing, or we're attempting to do Jiu-Jitsu or attempting to go into grappling. Yeah, very, very important. It's a continual exposure for us in every way, and it really challenges the lower self. Again, these are things that outwardly you just can't see. Many people just can't fully grasp that. Like, what are you talking about inside and spirituality, bro? You're just trying to rip his arm off. That's not, that's probably just the furthest thing from what we're trying to do. So I think for many of us, if we're thinking about it, I think if we want to approach it in a really, what I would say, wholesome way, because many people don't come to Jiu-Jitsu in that wholesome way. They come in to, you know what I mean, rip up some arms and choke people out and whatever. And that's fine. That's brilliant. You know, that's whatever you want to do. But many people are averse to doing it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to learn it because of these reasons. It's like, it's too hard. I don't want to do that. I'm not that type of person. I don't like to get in. I don't like touch. I don't, you know, contact is difficult. Then there are those who like the idea of it, but the reality of doing it day in, day out, hard. Istiqama, this concept of, you know, constancy, not consistency, constancy, to do things constantly, is really tied in with progress in Jiu-Jitsu. And this is why I think also this is something that we can also learn as a byproduct of just realizing that to get anywhere, and you guys will be you'll testify to this, is that to get anywhere in grappling, you have to spend a serious amount of time doing it. It's not, you know, okay, I'll do a 1 day intensive course and that's it. You know, I've done Jiu-Jitsu and I understand what I need to do. No, you have to chip away at it, and you'll have good days and you'll have bad days, like life, like the rest of your world, like existence. But then slowly you make headway, and that transfers over to so many facets of your life. And that's why Jiu-Jitsu kind of transcends that just simple beat him up mentality, is that we learn so much about ourselves through doing it that you know, it has such an impact in our life that we now can't leave it. And I think you guys will all, you know, agree with that. I don't know how you're feeling now, but you know, the last training session I had was on the 15th of March. We're now on the 14th of May, and I can tell you for sure, aside from surgery, I've never stopped doing jiu-jitsu. This is the longest time that I've physically not grappled with another man. So it's a very, you know, I feel very withdrawn because I'm very, you know, it's a very intense thing that I've been doing for a long time. And it's quite a, you know, it's quite a challenge not to do it now. It's very difficult. So I feel quite withdrawn. I have to do my training, you know, every other day. I have my own sessions, you know, outside of the classes, and obviously now with the lockdown, we're having to do things at home. But I think you know, just going back to the point of challenging yourself and the inner self, I think this is what we need to do continually. You know, it's something, it can't just be something ad hoc and, you know, I'll take a little break from it now. And, you know, the way we take a vacation, you know, we'll take a 2-week trip somewhere and we think, you know, we've seen the world. You've just gone for 2 weeks, mate. You're not going anywhere. You know, you've not seen the world. You know, you've not really experienced a culture, a lifestyle, a language, a place. And people who kind of do that, even with their spiritual endeavors, you will not get very far. I'm not claiming that I've got very far at all. I'm you know, a work in progress. I'm really struggling with myself every single day. And you know, but what I found is that the prophetic arts generally, you've got likes of archery, swordsmanship, all these things, they can really help you in terms of working on yourself spiritually inside.
Jazakallah khair, thank you so much. And I think, I don't know if Asim has any questions as well, but I'd really just like to, I think what you've said is so powerful. And I think what I find difficult when I'm often trying to, it's really difficult to explain it, because I think when people talk about jiu-jitsu, you know, they see that whole, oh, it's like UFC. It's like, you know, Conor McGregor sort of flapping his arms around. And it's just this, it's the bravado, and then when, you know, and that is the absolute antithesis of going in and talking about the soul worth. So when you're talking about, oh, you know, mashallah, actually, you know, there's this understanding of submission, which you've talked about. There's this understanding of the soul worth, and this, you know, all of those, you know, the ills of the heart, you know, the diseases of the heart, you know, things like ego is obviously a big one. And that's something that we are constantly talking about actually within the sessions. And so there's just that massive, it's incredible disconnect that people have. So when you're talking about it, they're just looking at you like, that's not what I'm looking at all. I'm literally just seeing, and I can appreciate that sometimes, you know, that what
No,
they
it's
see. So
natural. It's the first thing you see, and I think, you know, not to discredit anybody who sees it that way, and that's fine. That's always kind of the introduction to it, isn't it? And you know, everyone's, you know, that's not a problem. I think what the problem is that if you just hold it to that alone, if you think that that is the sum point of this art and that's all I can gain from it, you know, many parents out there will think, well, I don't really want my kid to be, you know, rough, and I don't want him to be a bully or she to be, you know, too aggressive and whatever. But actually, what you find, you learn from that, from these arts, is a great discipline, is a great mastery of the self, and that I think is, you know, everybody who's been doing jiu-jitsu now or grappling, or who has tasted that, has a responsibility to kind of express that, you know, and convey that to perhaps people who just think, oh, you guys are just a bunch of blokes like rolling around on the ground, and you know, you're just trying to hurt each other for, you know, for the sake of it. I think it's really important that people see these things, and you know, there's only so much you can tell them, but I think at the same time, if you can really succinctly highlight to them, well, this is what you're going to get out of it. Yeah, this is, we can all relate to hardship, we can all relate to adversity, we can all relate to difficulties in life. You will find a way out of that because of this. You will learn how to deal with that. You will have a method by which to live your life. You know, they talk about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, and I'm conscious of the time, and I don't want to ramble on too much, but this is what many people, you know, I spend a lot of time, you know, speaking to, you know, Brazilians. You know, like my instructor, Wilson Jr. You know, he's a head instructor of Carlson Gracie Team London, and I love him to bits. He's, you know, a beautiful, beautiful individual, and I've learned not only the art from him, but I've learned a lot from him personally as an individual. And you know, just understanding how he viewed life. You know, he's not someone, you know, given to faith. He's not someone who's, you know, who has a faith per se, but he talks about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, and he understands the discipline required physically. You know, I've got to be, you know, I've got to maintain a certain level of fitness, and it's got to be real fitness. It's got to be, you know, functional, and it's going to be, you know, it's not superficial. It can't be just working out in the gym and, you know, looking good for the camera and, you know, posing with all that sort of stuff. But then also that I have to have the mindset. I have to understand that I psychologically have to prepare myself each and every time I go into battle. You know, when you go into the spar, you prepare yourself mentally. I do. I don't know if, you know, if you guys, if you feel the same way, but I you know, it's a real thought process. I'm going in and I'm psychologically preparing myself, and that is a good thing. That's something I think a lot of us have lost.
there's a reason I'm late to every session, and that's literally it's 20 minutes. Right, you got to do this. You've got to go. You've got to go. You got to, you know, and it's that preparation. And I think that's another thing that I really wanted to touch upon. I think you mentioned a couple of things that talk about sort of being prepared, being ready, and you know, just for the sake of another plug, actually, it's something that we talked about, we discussed on the podcast actually with Dr. Shadi, about this concept of, I think it's Sayyidina Umar that talked about be rough and ready, be rough and rugged, because the blessings don't ever last. So the blessings won't last. And so it is this concept of actually, you know, and it's actually, how else are you going to be rough and ready? And it is a, you know, it's a relatively safe environment. It is an environment that allows us to push ourselves to limits of the physical capacity for sure, but also mentally, it allows you to push yourself to those kind of limits, and then kind of go, wow, okay, you know, you have to draw breath. I'm going to have to do this. And again, you know, you can tap whenever you need to, or whenever, you know, you feel you want to, or whatever. But that's that concept of being ready for those difficulties. And I think lots of it, I mean, again, just to bring it back, also, you talked about it's been, you know, the longest time since, you know, whatever, that you've not wrestled with another man, is what you'd said. But actually, how long is it that, but you're still wrestling with yourself, you know, physically, mentally, on a daily basis? I mean, how are you finding that side of things as well?
Yeah. No, it's a constant battle. I mean, just as an example, and I'm conscious of, you know, the brothers on here, they're very, very fit individuals. You got Sidi Asim there blowing his nose because he's probably done about 1,000 burpees today, or whatever the challenge is. I don't, you know, I've lost track. But you know, even going out for a bike ride, you know, I've been doing my whatever usual 6 to 8 miles, you know, on my bike. I've got my several sessions in the day. I've got my kettlebell training that I do. Psychologically, you know, spiritually, I have to overcome myself. There's nothing, you know, I have to do that consciously. That's not something that comes easy. And people say, oh, well, you're fit and you've been doing it for years and whatever. It's no easier. In fact, it's probably harder, you know, in some ways. It can be harder for me. But I think it's this also striving, you know, and, you know, one of the things I'm really interested in is understanding the objectives from an Islamic perspective, what the objectives are for engaging in these martial arts. And it's something, there's a great sheikh, he's still with us, Hafizullah Ta'ala, Sheikh Siraj Hendricks. He's based in Cape Town, South Africa. And about 19 years ago, 20 years ago, he penned a really, really succinct article on the objectives of sport in Islam. Yeah. Now, sport is, you know, I use that term loosely, but what he identifies in there is essentially why you would ever do martial arts, you know, from an Islamic perspective. You know, we kind of question, well, I certainly do anyway now. I'm an avid basketball player, avid. I played in school, I played in college, I played at university. You know, so my sports is my background, but I found it very frivolous. And I came to that kind of conclusion myself. It wasn't easy because I loved basketball. I still do. But in that article, Sheikh Siraj highlights some very clear objectives. And when you can put those together, and I'll mention them in a minute, if you can have an objective in your mind as to why you would do something, it's not a goal. It's like, I mean, it's a goal. You can have small aims and goals and whatever, but an objective that we must fulfill as believers, then that gives us a whole different, you know, take on why we would do things, and also gives us a compelling motivational element as well as to why we would want to do something like jiu-jitsu or you know, sunnah art. So some of the things that he mentions in there, just very quickly, just, you know, number one, military function. That was the number one reason, one of the number one, you know, the primary reason why the likes of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba would do martial arts training. Yeah. Then he goes on and he discusses itqan, mastery, self-mastery, that you would engage in the bow and really think about mastering yourself. You know, we know the very famous narrations of Imam Shafi'i being able to write his own name, you know, shooting with the arrows. Imam Bukhari, you know, his precision in hadith was replicated on the range with his precision, you know, with his archery. He, you know, rarely missed. There's a social communal aspect to these martial arts that we do, you know, and that in itself is a very, very beneficial thing. And then we also have the elements of refreshment. Sheikh Siraj talks about this, you know, very briefly. You know, you could read it in a few minutes, but he so succinctly puts it that, you know, how often we engage in things. And I'm speaking now perhaps on those people who are very, very practicing Muslims. MashaAllah, they're given to worship, they're given to ibadah, they're given to reciting the Quran. MashaAllah, you know, you had Sidi Yasim, you know, MashaAllah, reciting qasidas beautifully, Hisham doing his Quran as well. But we can be so engaged in that we don't have any farah, we don't have any leisure, we don't have any release, you know, downtime, you know. So one of the things that he highlighted as an objective for doing sports or doing martial arts was that refreshment of the soul, of the heart. And you know, he brought narrations of Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, where he said that Abu Darda would say that I entertained my heart with something trivial in order to strengthen it in service of the truth. And that I find so profound. I find it so beautiful, because you know, through this art, and you know, we all have goals, and yeah, maybe you want, you know, win a competition, we want to do really, really well, etc., get fit, get strong. But how often do we think about it as a means to strengthen our iman, for serving Allah, for finding truth, seeking truth? I think these are really important things as well.
Again, you know, I'm literally taking notes. This is a class for me, mashallah. I don't know if Asim has any other questions he wants to jump in on.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to say that, and we've spoken about it before, how to progress in jiu-jitsu you have to embrace the grind. You have to go through that period where you're getting absolutely smashed by everyone, and that's obviously only done in the sparring. But if you don't have that, element of you getting smashed and embracing that grind and enjoying that grind, you're not going to succeed. But there's so many parables with jiu-jitsu and with life in general, because there's a saying in jiu-jitsu, isn't it, that some days you're the hammer and some days you're the nail. But I think for me personally, especially in the lockdown, I mean, because you spend so much time in isolation, it's like you find out so much about yourself, and it's literally some days you have a good day, you're the hammer. Some days you have a bad day, you're the one that's getting hammered, you're the nail. It's exactly the same on the mats. Some days you have a good day, some days you have a bad day. But the key point is in life as well, that you can't just give up. I mean, it's just life. Some days you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've taken from jiu-jitsu, that you're gonna have good days and you're gonna have bad days, but you just can't give up. And that's it. You just have to keep going. And I guess something that we can take as well, and something that we can apply in day-to-day life. It's not necessarily something that's a religious thing. In every endeavor that you do in your life, and that might be at work, that might be at home, that might be even trying to attain khushu in your prayers, or whatever it might be.
There's a book out now, but I really find the title very, very truthful, that how you do anything is how you do everything. And that is certainly true, that with how we approach things like the martial arts, and then how it then spills over into other elements of our life, is food for thought for people who, may not see value in that, in doing these martial arts, or may even mock people. That's what I found. You guys know how maybe, you feel when you come back home. The wives will complain unless they have an idea of what it's like to grapple as well, or to do it themselves. They can look at you cynically, people mock you, laugh in the joke, look at him, there he goes again, but it's very, very important, because it does, it can really positively affect you and reinforce a lot of other elements of your life that, you would normally perceive.
I just think that point about, and again, it's language, and I know it's it's between us, and it's language that we understand, and we're aware of. But again, I think sometimes for someone on the outside, they're like, "What do you mean you get smashed? Why would you want to go somewhere and get smashed?" It's just, that's not necessary. But actually, that thing about embrace the grind, embrace the struggles, embrace the challenges and the difficulties. But just and I think one of the quotes, I mean, that's one of the quotes from yourself, and another quote from yourself is just get to the door. Actually, just get to the door, and then you can take it from there. And I think that's the thing, is just get up every day. Let's see how things go, and just push yourself, and seek and strive to better yourself. If I had one request, is if any of the brothers are listening, the Jiu-Jitsu group as well, is that if I could be the hammer a couple of times as well, actually, because
now you're asking silly.
I'm finding the nail, man. It's just it's not good being the nail all the time. Mashallah, I think it's incredible. But generally, but other than that, I mean, again, I think what's also really important is that although you are a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and actually, mashallah, not just a practitioner, a master in that particular art, you've also talked about archery as well as another martial art. And so could you talk a little bit about your or the work that you've done sort of actually with the Fatwa gatherings across, and I think most of them are in Italy, in Turkey. So I don't know what the situation is there at the moment this year, as that's going to happen, or.
So just to brief background, just for the listeners, if they're interested, Fatwa was an initiative that was started by Greensville Trust. They're an organization, a Muslim organization in the north of England, in Liverpool. And the idea was to revive the sunnah activities that we all know, the likes of swimming, horse riding, archery, calligraphy, and also wrestling, grappling. So I was asked to teach the grappling element of that retreat. It's held every year in the summertime. Initially, it was a 3-week retreat, and then they cut it down to about 10 days. So every summer, alhamdulillah, Allah's grace, we've been able to go to Turkey and teach a group of brothers out there. It's a retreat that's actually for the whole family, and the sisters have their own program, but then also the kids are there as well, so then your children can also partake. Sadly, this year it may not happen for obvious reasons. So we're just waiting to hear back on that. But one of the main points of the Futuwa retreat was this whole discussion that we're having now about purifying or refining our character, and it's that is what is meant or understood by Futuwa as an act of chivalry, as being chivalrous people. And traditionally, the great Abu Abdurrahman ibn Sulami, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote a book, Kitab al-Futuwa. He's a 4th century scholar. And in that, he details the attributes or the virtues of a fatah. And fatah is mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf, and the scholars, your Maulanas can tell you about what that means and its implications. But essentially what it is that we try to refine ourselves to the apex of this concept of futuwa, of being chivalrous, of being of upright character. And that involves being generous, that involves being brave, that calls for mercy towards others, goodness towards others, and developing really, really important character traits that ordinarily we like to talk about and we read about and we think we have, but in essence, in reality, it's a very different story. So this retreat it's a beautiful retreat, and I'm not saying that because I'm involved. Even if I wasn't involved, it's something that I think I would really advocate for everyone to go. I would certainly attend it. And you're exposed to all these martial arts. I would call them martial every day in a very intense way, and it's also tied in with worship. It's tied in with spiritual understanding and learning. And we actually go through several books of Imam al-Ghazali and his Ihya al-Muddin. And it's such a beautiful experience for me. Every year I go, and despite being one of the teachers, I learn so much about myself, so much about my faith. And it's something that's really, really very, very positive, and it's a big part of my life. And it's just sad that maybe this year it won't happen. But what we were doing on there was, just trying to give the participants just a flavor of the golden age of Islam as it relates to activity. It's one thing learning academically, scholastically, learning books, reading, learning Arabic, textual things, but to physically do something, it has a very, very big impact on our identity as Muslims. Because if you just reduce to Islam, your Islam or your Muslimness to just being able to read the Quran or reading praying 5 times a day or fasting in the month of Ramadan, that is something that's very personal. That's your worship, okay? But if you can extend that a little bit and understand that actually we have a whole tradition, we have a whole culture. In fact, we have arts that are preserved, that are in keeping with the Sunnah, and you can learn those and you can benefit from them not only physically, psychologically, spiritually. Why wouldn't you do that? So I think it is something that we did every year, and some of our Karima Foundation, Karima guys that have done as well. Some of your teachers have also also participated in. So I think it's been very, very, very good. Very, very positive. I just wish and I pray that more people would do it instead of asking and talking about it, because you just have to do it. Literally, you just
just do it.
Just do it.
Inshallah. Okay, Jazakallah, thank you so much. And again, I think there's a couple of things that I want to quickly mention. I know that obviously yourself, you're obviously very heavily involved in the Ashford Masjid and Community Centre there. So what we'll do is we'll try and put up a link in the live chat as well. So, and obviously you're seeking donations, and obviously it's a difficult time for everyone. So what we'll do is we'll put a link up in the live chat as well. So if Brother Khiam can do that as well. In terms of Futuwa generally, if anyone has any more, any interest in learning a bit more, the Sheikh Ibrahim Osiefa, just literally Sheikh Ibrahim Osiefa Futuwa, just to YouTube that. There's loads online. So feel free to have a look at that. And then just, thank you again so much for your time. I think in terms of Futuwa and just that general sense of being humble, being generous, and showing mercy, I think no one epitomizes it for me more than you. I think I see that is incredible. And again, just your ability to take on people that are much bigger than you is amazing, and also that humbleness and the strength as well. So Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for your time.
A real pleasure. Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate being on here with yourselves.
And inshallah we'll catch up soon physically.
Inshallah.
Okay, so for the last few minutes, what we normally do, and you're welcome to stick around, Ustad, but I don't know what time your iftar time is, but for the last few minutes, we read the adhkar that take us through to Maghrib time. So I'm going to ask Brother Asim to read to take us through to Maghrib. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار يا عظيم يا عظيم اغفر الذنب العظيم فإنه لا يغفر الذنب العظيم إلا العظيم لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار يا عظيم يا عظيم اغفر الذنب العظيم فإنه لا يغفر الذنب العظيم إلا العظيم لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار يا عظيم يا عظيم اغفر الذنب العظيم فإنه لا يغفر الذنب العظيم إلا العظيم لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار يا عظيم يا عظيم اغفر الذنب العظيم فإنه لا يغفر الذنب العظيم إلا العظيم لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار يا عظيم يا عظيم اغفر الذنب العظيم فإنه لا يغفر الذنب العظيم إلا العظيم لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار يا عظيم يا عظيم اغفر الذنب العظيم فإنه لا يغفر الذنب العظيم إلا العظيم لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك اللهم الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم.